Go again. I'm here. I'm live. This time I'm not going to be with Jenna, my co-host from Drunk Dietitians. I'm going to be with a good friend of mine, McCall Dempsey, who is going to be. Hi, McCall. So she is going to be joining me. She's from the Alliance for Eating Disorders. I'm getting her checked in here. And then we'll be going live to cover all things Quarantine 15.
Hi!
We did it.
Yay, it's working.
See, it's
I was
easy.
like, you do it. So good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Although I get to see you every day through your Instagram stories.
Yes. I feel like now too, because there's been like more, I don't want to say more time because I hate for people to feel like now they have all this time. It's the same amount of time. We just spend it differently. But I feel like I've just been like on social media nonstop. So people are either like sick of me and unfollowing, or they're like, oh, I kind of like her.
No. I mean, and I think, thank you for getting us started. But I mean, that's why we reached out to you because I love your platform and that you reach out to so many. Obviously, at the Alliance, we're supporting folks that are suffering from eating disorders. But what we also do is doing something so much further than that and smashing the diet culture, educating folks on intuitive eating. So like, we're so in line. And I was like, we're just trying to come up with as many and help as many people as we can through a virtual platform now, which I kind of think is really cool and something that I hope we kind of keep going with. Limited. Like, I can't wait to like give you a hug and like go to Valley Smoke with you again.
And get our double decker charcuterie board.
Oh, the double decker
so much.
beef pizza. Yes. And our wine date, all the things. Like,
yes.
Can't wait for that. But yeah, and we just wanted to connect with you and talking about this freaking diet culture that is all around all the time. And now it's in a pandemic. Like, what? So as people join, like, please feel free to like ask questions and thoughts and comments. I see, did you put out a call out box? I put out some comment, one of those like question things.
Boxes.
Yeah. So I definitely have kind of a guide or, some things that people are wanting to know. But if anyone comments and wants to have a question, please feel free. But yeah, so I literally, just as you were like texting me like, okay, let's go, I saw something about, it was, and I'm so sorry, I cannot remember who had it. I should have written it down because I don't remember anything these days. But it was about, wow, what does that say about our society, our collective fear as humans when people are fearing weight gain during a pandemic more than they are getting sick themselves? And I don't know. I think like, let's kick off with like, what are your thoughts around like, and what have you seen professionally and just on social media as, in the trenches of the pandemic and diet culture and now how it has clashed? Like, what have you seen? What's your perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. We did, so I know, first I want to go back. We did release a podcast like fully on this.
Oh, yes. Please tell everybody. Yeah.
Yes. So our podcast, it's called Drunk Dietitians, but it is not, we're not wasted. It's like sipping a glass of wine and chatting.
I love
with friends.
It. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's those great titles that catch people's attention.
Yes. Yeah. So, but we just released last Friday, and we released an interview with Brenna O'Malley. She's known on Instagram as the Wellful.
Yes.
And she's
awesome.
She's like the queen of like non-diet puns and memes and all those kind of things. But so we released a whole hour episode like on this exact question about basically like COVID-19 and diet culture and like the parallels. But yeah, no, it makes sense. I think that this is happening and we're seeing this big parallel with like the pandemic and people more worried about weight loss because so much of our culture is so entrenched in diet culture and so disordered. So it makes sense that if you're locked inside and have no access to your gym and are surrounded by food, that now people are like showing their true colors of how much they're freaking out or how scared they feel, or their weight bias or their weight stigma with like these stupid posts about like, don't gain the quarantine 15 or whatever it is. So that, to me, it almost like, it helps magnify the situation of how extreme diet culture is. And it helps shine a lot of light on which practitioners are actually here to help you and which ones are here to just support diet culture. In the same space, I have a lot of compassion for people that are posting these kind of things because, as you and I know, like, it's a sign of being disordered. And I think a lot of people are doing it without even realizing that they have some things that they need to unpack and uncover about themselves. But yeah, I mean, the fact that there's literally a global pandemic going on and people are more concerned about like weight gain, it's mind-blowing to people like us, but to people in the roots of diet culture, it makes sense because they fear weight gain more than they fear getting COVID-19.
Yeah. I mean, it just popped up. I saw him work out and tried it, and after 3 days, I binged so badly. What, you know, and going off like comments like that, and I think like other things that we've heard and other things that people have messaged me, and I'm sure messaged you, it's like, okay, now I'm at home all day long and I have all my binge foods or fear foods, or it can be someone that thought they had a healthy relationship with food, and maybe they do on some levels, but but this kind of, like you just said, really kind of like uncovers stuff, and it's like, okay, now all they're thinking about is that ice cream that's in their fridge or whatever it might be. What are maybe some thoughts on how a person that is, you know, doing the responsible social distancing, staying at home, and how can we put some structure into our day so that we're not, you know, people call it like bored eating or, you know, the boredom snacking all day. And I think part of that is like, you're gonna boredom snack. Like some of us that, I mean, my house is still chaos 24/7, but the people that are just home, like, you're gonna boredom snack. So I feel like they're like, and you can speak more to this with the intuitive eating of like, you're gonna do it, you gotta give yourself some grace. But like, maybe, or stress eating, as someone just said, like, what are some kind of tools or ideas about setting up some kind of structure without getting too rigid?
That's a great question. So I think first, exactly what you said, you have to normalize the behavior pattern that's going on. Or like, I did a Instagram live with a therapist a few weeks ago, and she went over like the idea of radical acceptance with not only, like, that's something I've learned with like body image, but almost like with COVID too, is like, we're all in this horrible situation right now. We're all going through it together. We're all affected differently, but we have to radically accept what is happening. Because if we just try to do like coping mechanism, that's essentially just like, if we're all swimming in a pool, that's taking a beach ball and just like shoving it underwater, and then it like just pops up somewhere else.
A great analogy.
So if we don't like do that radical acceptance piece first, then we're gonna find ourselves just like going back to the boredom eating or the stress eating. So the radical acceptance piece is big with like COVID-19, with body image, with food. But from a boredom or stress eating standpoint, first thing first is normalizing. I literally, what time was it? 3 o'clock. I had like half a pint of ice cream.
Yes.
I was talking to my husband. I was like, I'm stress eating right now. And he's like, what is going on? And I was like, I'm just letting you know, like, I'm stress eating right now.
Yeah.
And I would classify myself, I have a very healthy relationship with food.
Absolutely.
But that's okay that is still going to happen. So normalizing it, but then also, like, when you remove the judgment, when you remove the guilt, then you don't always have to turn to the ice cream like I did today. That's one coping mechanism. I also probably wasn't fueled properly going into that. But then also saying like, okay, how do I have a toolbox of other coping mechanisms, such as other things that might feel good in that moment? So if that is yoga, calling a friend, going for a walk, a hilarious podcast, whatever it is, then we have other things to turn to as well. So that eating isn't the only coping mechanism that we have. It's just one of many, and it's okay to turn to it. Like, it's totally fine.
Absolutely. And I think too, one of the things that I always do that helps me, and I don't do it perfectly by any means, and like I'll end up in the pantry and just like, okay, what am I in the mood for? And like I'm just snacking. And one of the things that I find really helps me is that I kind of like give myself a minute and I say, what do I really want? And then I give myself the food freedom to really choose whatever I want, and I put it in a bowl or a plate or something like that. So I'm not just like, because then I think it's like you're not even tasting or mindfully eating what you're having. So it's fine if you eat a pint of ice cream, but like sit down and enjoy it,
Taste it.
Yeah, taste it. So I think, one thing that also came up, while we're in this weird place that we're in, how can folks that are, so folks that are struggling with eating disorders, or, I think everyone right now, especially with, you go to the grocery store and you might not be able to necessarily get everything that you usually get. Not that there is like food scarcity, but some people might feel that stress or anxiety. Maybe some, and I saw it earlier, you did the waffles with the avocado smash and the eggs, and I was like, oh, I'm doing that tomorrow. Somebody commented about maybe some nutrient dense, because I hate the word healthy because I feel like it's so disordered, but like nutrient dense meals that they can really get the substance that they need to meet those meal plans if they're struggling, or just making sure, like you said earlier, like getting adequate nutrition, like maybe some easy snacks, or I feel like, breakfast is something that is like, you always you do a great job like posting breakfast ideas, some thoughts that like can really pack in some great nutrient dense vitamins and calories and things that people are looking for.
Yeah. So I think that's a great question. And then also I feel like I didn't properly answer your previous question about like structure. I just kind of more
do it all together.
Mechanism. But it's kind of like all one and the same. And using myself as an example, like I probably ate half that pint of ice cream today because I was like, working from home, blowing through my lunch. I looked down like, oh shit, it's 2:00 and now I'm starving. And so structure is important, and I am by no means perfect. I'm the first to admit that, but with consistency, trying to get fed every 3 to 4 hours and have a very general approach to what those meals look like. So we can at least say, when we're going into stress eating or boredom eating, is it really stress eating, or are you just not adequately fed? Because that's where I find a lot of people say, oh, I'm an emotional eater. And then we get down to it and they're just not eating enough. And they just might happen to have stress during the eating experience, but they're just not fed properly. So definitely eating every 3 to 4 hours as best as possible, consistently, not perfect, is huge. Making sure we're maintaining adequate hydration. I know, like, my husband and I are both working from home, and like, he looked at me yesterday, he's like, it was like 2:00, he's like, I haven't had a sip of water today. And I'm like, that's great. Like, so like it's like so easy to get out of our usual things. Like, I have this water bottle from one of my favorite Pilates studios in Jacksonville, but it has like reminders like when to drink water and like do it again. So like totally. Sometimes it's just like the simple little things. Maybe it's setting alarms on your phone just to remind you, or talking to your partner or a friend that you can text to remind each other, like, hey, it's mealtime, or maybe signing on to an Instagram Live or a FaceTime where you can have a snack together or a meal together. Friday, a colleague and I, her account is No Food Rules. Like, we're logging on at 2 p.m. and doing a live snack time so people can come and like eat together. So we can get really inventive with ways to create structure, but generally speaking, I don't even like to say rule, but my ideal situation is eating every 3 hours to keep the blood sugar stable. But coming back to your question about nutrient dense foods, I think that is a huge part of this. And nutrient dense doesn't always mean fresh and organic and homemade. And I think that's the big misconception. So what McCall was talking about on Instagram today, I just did like 2 waffles, smashed avocado on it, threw some scrambled eggs, some sriracha and pepper. I ran out of everything but the bagel seasoning. We're like dying without it. We need to go get some, but suit up. Yes. So generally speaking for meals, it's do you have a carb? Do you have protein? And do you have some form of color? It's not that we're excluding fat by any means, but fat is usually found in our protein sources or in avocado or oils or things. So generally speaking, I say carb, protein, color. And that's an easy way to look at meals. We did one yesterday, a microwavable rice packet, microwavable steamed veggies, and a leftover protein source that we had in the fridge, a little bit of low sodium soy sauce, or I don't even know, maybe it was coconut aminos, I don't remember. And boom, like 5-minute meals. So nutrient dense doesn't have to be fresh for those listening. It can be very convenient, but just trying to get that nice variety of food.
Well, and I think too, you know, I'm thinking last night, Jordan, the kids and I we all eat at different times. Well, the kids eat early and then we cook something and we eat a little later and we'll sit with the kids while they eat. That's a whole different podcast. But Jordan had made Marjorie loves chia seeds and butter noodles, and she loves the chia seeds on the buttered noodles. And so anyway.
Interesting.
I know, you know.
I want to try that.
It's, you know, she puts chia seeds on everything. I have no idea why. I think she just likes to sprinkle them.
It's like sprinkles.
Whatever, you do you, girlfriend. So there was these buttered noodles, and like instead of just standing at the pot and just, you know, whatever, I was hungry, and so I was like, I'm gonna make. And there is something just so good and so nutrient dense and wonderful and filling about just a good bowl of noodles. You know, it doesn't always have to be. Noodles. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the avocado with the hemp seed and the this and the, you know, like that's amazing. And like your breakfast looked awesome, but also like I just want people to remember, like you can just have a cup of buttered noodles, have some mac and cheese, and like call it a day.
Just waffles, or
or just waffles. Like, don't try to subscribe to we have to have all the things on our plate all the time. Like that's awesome if we can, but I was just trying to see. So many people think it's intimidating or too much when someone is mindful and trying to be healthier in avenues. Avenues intimidates other people to feel as though it's too much. How do we portray that? Hang on, I'm trying to understand the question. So many people think it's intimidating or too much when someone is mindful and trying to be healthier in all avenues. Intimidates other people to feel as though it's too much. How do we portray that? It's not the same for everyone.
I think what I'm gathering from that is maybe just if someone's trying to eat more nutrient dense foods, I think with the word healthy, with the word nutrient dense, I think everybody is different. Every situation's different. Everyone's health history, everyone's relationship with food. I think it all comes down to what are your intentions behind your meal choices. And sometimes it's going to be food just needs to be quick and easy and convenient. Sometimes it is sitting down and doing an elaborate meal and having an ambiance with it. But generally speaking, like when you're making your food choices, are the intentions to fuel yourself, to nourish yourself because it feels good? Or are you trying to skimp out on certain things? And know, like better, everyone knows like if they're trying to skimp out, right? So I think if you're saying that you're trying to be healthier or more mindful, really dig deep and say, okay, what does that mean for me? Because I've heard people say I'm mindfully eating and then they're like way restricting. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
no, I think it's totally right. And I think because a lot of times that kind of brings up a couple of things in my head. We have a lot of comparison all the time. It's human nature. Social media like electrifies it. And also right now in a pandemic where all we have is social media to look into each other's lives and to stay connected. There can be a lot of like, oh shit, I'm not making my kids all sit, like for me, like we're not all sitting down together and eating like all the things. So I'm a bad mom. Or somebody might think I'm not doing a good enough job because I don't have X, Y, and Z. And so I think one thing that we just talked about is whether it's like microwave mac and cheese or, a fancy plate, like you do you and what feels right, but like don't be afraid to dig a little deeper. And I think too, one of the other pressures that we're hearing a lot right now is the exercise piece and that weight loss piece. And so I think it's coming at it from two folds, and I got this from both ways, right? So how do I resist exercise urges? And why is there something wrong with wanting to get in shape during a pandemic? And so I'll let you talk to that before I dive in.
Yeah. So this is like, I love this whole conversation is blending with two of our podcasts. So another one is, we don't have, it's not out yet, but we have one releasing Friday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with Claire Tuning. She's a non-diet dietitian. And we're talking about the intuitive eating principles related to COVID-19. So we talked a lot about movement and, you know, all these like push-up challenges and all this like stuff.
I'm like, people, stop tagging me. I'm not doing the push-ups.
Yeah, I was like, absolutely not to the push-ups. But I think this same thing, like there's so many parallels with fitness and food. Like, what is your intention behind the movement? And what is your intention behind resting? And can those two things coexist in your life? But the main thing with fitness, pandemic or no pandemic, is like when you partake in fitness, is it completely uncoupled from changing the size of your body? Because for me, like, and I talk about this on our podcast a lot, and I share this online, like I had such a poor relationship with fitness for so long because I was always doing it just to burn calories, just to change my body, to try to shrink my body. So then I went through a long period of like hating fitness because that's what it was. So now, like for me, walking and yoga and like gentle movement, I do it for like my mental sanity and because I enjoy it and because right now it's something to do. And so that's like, or to get out and get some sunshine and breathe fresh air. So like for me, that's where movement is right now for me. But for some people, you know, their relationship with movement before this pandemic was, I need to go to the gym every single day. I need to burn calories. I need to change the shape of my body. So now that that's been cut off from them, that can feel really scary. Because that's almost like trying to break a million food rules at once, right? And having all these fear foods in the house. So now if that's all happening at once with fitness and with food, that's really scary. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, don't move at all during this pandemic. But can we try to shift the perspective and the intention behind the movement of doing what feels good for the body, not trying to change the shape of our body?
Yeah. And I think, you know, when somebody says, is it bad for me to get in shape? Well, like, I'm not going to say anything is bad. I mean, you're not a bad person. My prompt always to anyone who says, well, it's not a bad thing to work out, or it's not a bad thing to want to, you know, get in shape. But my thing is like, what is get in shape? You and me both love our air quotes, by the way.
That's all I use.
Like, what is really like get in shape or getting toned like really mean for you? And how will that like change your life or change who you are? It won't, you know? And so it's one of those things where it's like society has us go to war with food and body to, you know, take care of whatever is underlying underneath, you know. And as you know, as I know, like just because we lower the number on the scale or we get toned, that has absolutely zero impact on who we are as a person, our happiness, our mental health. And so that's kind of my always like kickback question to folks is like, what is that? Okay, so let's say you do that. Great, good for you. And I think there is space to give to moving our bodies is a wonderful thing. And it's a key, you know, puzzle piece to taking care of ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. So I just always kind of like to prompt that question that there's nothing wrong with moving our bodies. And there is that, like you were saying, like there's that, like the question that we need to, you know, to kind of get at. And, you know, it goes back to that, the diet culture. And one thing that I saw recently, and it was within a text with multiple friends of mine, dear friends of mine, and it was a woman with her stomach like on the counter with a rolling pin like covered in flour, like rolling out her stomach like dough or whatever. And I don't really comment on those kind of things. And I was like, God, you know, like that I can do that with my stomach probably. And, you know, and I know plenty of folks that, you know, who are in larger bodies that are seeing probably a lot of these things. And it's very upsetting. Like, and I just wish so many people could put this into perspective that these memes and all the things that they're putting out there is actually body shaming people that might feel okay in their bodies, as they should, and then all of a sudden people are making fun of it. So how can we, collectively, have an impact or put up those boundaries with our loved ones to say, like, those aren't funny, this isn't funny? What kind of advice would you give to those people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think this pandemic is, just as it's shining so much light on people's poor relationship with food and body and fitness personally, I think it's also shining a huge light and magnifying the weight bias and weight stigma that exists in our culture and how fat phobic our culture is. So, I mean, there's so much to unpack here, because this is like an entire belief system that we're up against. And as somebody who was trained in diet culture, again, I can see where these people are coming from, and I have compassion for them, because they think it is just a joke or just funny, but it is truly the opposite, and it is harmful. And it's especially harmful to those in larger bodies. So, as a provider or practitioner in a smaller body, I always say I'm an ally to those in larger bodies. I am there to work alongside them, to listen to them, to advocate for them. But I can't understand the oppression or the fat stigma or weight stigma that they've undergone throughout their life. And so many people will say, well, I'm in a smaller body and I have body image issues. It's the same thing. Any body size can have body image struggles or body image issues. We know that. But somebody in a much larger body, we can't understand what they've been through. And that's thin privilege of just not understanding what they've gone through. And so I keep plugging our podcast, but I swear it's because we have like
you're fine. No, everything you do. I mean, please. Yeah.
So Bree Campos is a body image therapist. Her Instagram handle is Body Image with Bree. We just released an hour-long podcast with her where we talked all about body acceptance, body image, body respect. And she really just takes us on a deep dive of what it's like also to be in a larger body. She resides in a larger body. She's very open about that. So she's put up great content around this. So, as someone in a smaller body, I don't want to sit here and say, like, I understand what it's like with those, but I do know as a practitioner and a provider how harmful it is. Because they're like, imagine, if it's a loved one sees that and they have a similar size body, that's basically just making fun of your loved one, or calling them out. So these things are harmful. They're not okay. And it just speaks volumes to our belief system as a culture. People thinking that a fat body is a bad body, unattractive, lazy, unhealthy, which those are all false. Like, we do not know anything about a person by looking at the size of their body. So if you are a person that shared one of these memes or sent one of these texts, we're not shaming you, we're not guilting you, but I invite you to become curious to why you think that's funny and where that's coming from, like what urged you to want to share that and why your belief system is the way that it is.
Totally. I think it's somewhere on a deeper level, right? That we're all kind of, I don't think anyone does it out of malice or like, oh my God, but it's just, that's the kind of fear that's going around right now. And so one more thing that I really want you to talk about, because I love how you talk about this. If y'all haven't seen the Fuck Diet Culture Fridays, they're the bomb. Go scroll down.
I'm thinking of starting them back up.
You should. They're so good. But right now, I have seen a resurrection of intermittent fasting. Please tell far and wide, again, why it is not a good idea and why it's just another fad diet in disguise.
Yeah. Oh, I hear an animal attacking. Let me grab him.
Please do. She has the cutest little Frenchie. Hey, Biggs.
We're gonna jump on. See, he does the zoomies.
Oh, Biggs has the zoomies.
He's out.
He just came to get his toy?
He just came in to get his toy and ran out. It's fine.
Okay.
And I hear Luke yelling at him out there, so it's fine. He's like, "Mommy's working."
It's better than my kids. I think there was something being blown up. I'm not sure if it was a float or an air mattress. I don't know why
something's happening
tonight. There's been a little bit of yelling, so I mean, it's fine.
It happens. But yes, okay. So I'll happily cover that.
I know.
So okay, so all diets are the exact same thing. It's some form of restriction, and we know through research that restriction is the #1 indicator of binging. So with intermittent fasting, it like sneaks through the cracks, and people will say it's not a diet because they say you're allowed to eat everything. Mm-hmm. But we know that you're restricting your time and when you're allowed to eat. And anytime that you feel restricted, it's going to fuel a binging pattern. So we call it like the bow and arrow or the pendulum, where if you're intermittent fasting and you're restricting the amount of time that you're allowed to eat, you're going to say like, don't eat, don't eat, don't eat, don't eat. And then you get to a breaking point where you let go and you end up eating way more.
Yeah, binging or, yeah.
Yes. And so the reason it's probably like resurrected at this time is, again, we have to take note that people are so afraid of being locked indoors with like limitless food, where they're saying, well, if I just am not allowed to eat it, then I won't eat it. And then I have control over my food. I have power over my food. Again, that comes from an unhealthy relationship with food. So an easy marker of, do I have a positive relationship with food? Can you have all food in the house and know that it's there? It doesn't mean you're not going to eat it or you're not allowed to eat certain portions of it, but can you just know that you have all things in the house and not feel like it has this power over you?
Yeah. And I think like it goes back to, you know, how I experienced my eating disorder for 15 years and like how so many folks feel is like, I could not have, you know, ice cream or peanut butter or certain things. And if I did, it was either eat it, you know, however the compensatory factor to get rid of it was, or throw it away or whatever it was. And it's this notion that, and I bring this up a lot with people because, you know, and one of the reasons I was excited to do this with you is that to reach outside, you know, because people are like, oh, I don't have an eating disorder. And always the joke is, can't you tell? And I'm like, actually, I pretty much looked the exact same when I was literally dying. So no, you can't tell. You know, all shapes and sizes have eating disorders. And, you know, one of the things that was so powerful over me was the food that, I mean, obviously, but like the food that was in my own home. I had like an inventory at all times and I knew exactly how much and da-da-da-da-da. And I had a calorie inventory of like how many calories were in everything. I was a horrible calorie counter. And through my recovery process, it was crazy that, and amazing that as I slowly just continued to make those choices of recovery and the mindfulness eating and the intuitive eating, I got to a place where, and I'll never forget that Jordan called and he said, hey, babe, we were having family birthday dinner or something. And I picked up the cake and he calls and he says, do we have ice cream in the fridge? And I was like, I have absolutely zero idea. And it was the best feeling in the world, not because I didn't have ice cream because I didn't want it, but because it was so not like top of brain all the time. And it was just this really freeing feeling. And I feel that, you know, intermittent fasting, keto, however you want to like phrase it for yourself, it is just taking you away from that intuitive eating piece where the food is still #1 and the food is still going to dictate, or the scale is going to dictate your day and how you move and how you eat. And maybe this pandemic might be a silver lining for some folks to like dig a little deeper, work with professionals like you. At the Alliance, we have these amazing check-ins on Mondays and Saturdays for individuals struggling with an eating disorder. But, and, I guess I should say and, you don't have to have an eating disorder to come check in with us on our free support group, free virtual check-ins that they're really for everyone, just kind of in a funk right now, or which I think we all are, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, you know, you're eating your ice cream. You know, I mean, we're all kind of having our moments. I think the difference is that some of us feel okay to go, oh my God, I'm having a moment, and just giving ourselves that grace. And then
Yeah.
sometimes that grace kind of is a springboard to maybe another, you know, symptom use or behavior. So I do want to remind everyone that we have these amazing check-ins. You can find them on our Facebook, and we always put them on our Instagram. But yeah, I just, you know, I thank you so much for being with us tonight, and I can't wait to hug you and see you and to see Biggs. And thank you for just continuing to help us smash this diet culture. I mean, you're freaking phenomenal in all that you guys do, and I love that you're right around the corner. So yeah, so any last words, Yumi?
Well, I was just going to go off exactly what
Yeah.
you were just talking about. I think giving a little bit of insight of what intuitive eating is,
Yes.
because I think there's so many misconceptions with social media of that it means just eating all the ice cream and pizza and cookies and
Right.
cake and you know, fuck diets and I'm just going to eat everything. And that does come with intuitive eating in the beginning, because if we've been doing that restriction and binging for so long, when we're not on a diet, the only thing we know, or the only thing our brain has wired to, is that binge state.
Yep.
So if you're coming off keto, intermittent fasting, whatever you're doing, and you feel out of control around food, that is normal. That's like a normal celebratory binge that you're going to experience, but it doesn't last forever. And so with intuitive eating, what the goal is with this self-care form of eating is how to build introspective awareness with your body and trust your body again. Because all diets are external, right? It's how much of this should I eat? How many calories? When should I eat? When shouldn't I eat? What foods am I not allowed to have? It's constant chatter up here instead of what feels good right now. What do I want? And so that is like the base of intuitive eating. And I think we hear eat whatever you want, whenever you want. Of course, you have permission to eat ice cream at 2 p.m. or do whatever you want, but recognizing the attunement piece. It's about what feels good and honors your body in that moment. And we all are intuitive eaters. We're all born into this world with the ability to know when we're hungry and when we're full. If you think of infants crying and then turning away from the bottle or the breast, like they know, and that was us at one point. But we all grow up in this $72 billion diet industry that has a ton of external influences, and it really hinders our cues. So intuitive eating isn't about saying fuck health, like I'm gonna, you know, be this rebel and never care about my health again. It's actually like the complete opposite. It's how do I care for my body in a way that honors me, instead of following a list of rules that have no like nothing to do with me or know anything about me.
Yeah, so. And thank you. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I mean that is something that people are like, oh, I would just eat all the cookies all the time. I'm like, that's not it at all. You know, I mean, the way that I live my life is, what do I want? And I eat what I want. And so it's truly, yeah, some days I have a very strong, steadfast tradition of burger and beer after smash. And it's like, because I'm usually craving it. And it's just like my little celebration. And when I come home from long work trips or travel trips, I'm always craving some type of veggies or fish or something like that. And it's not that I'm trying to offset maybe the burger and beer. It's just because like that's what my body wants. And like I know how to listen to my body. And that I think also I wanted to add as someone, and you've been through it as well, and getting over to intuitive eating, you know, you have to give yourself that grace of overeating and the scariness that is sitting with maybe an overfullness or whatever it is. You have to give yourself that grace, because that's the period where you say, ooh, that was too much granola. Okay, maybe for next time. But you're so excited. Like for me, the granola, the peanut butter, like those kind of things for me, I was so excited to finally, I had permission to eat them because I no longer had food rules. And so it wasn't that I was overeating. It was just, I was really enjoying it. And then food loses its I don't want to say luster because I love food, but it loses kind of like that hierarchy of, oh, I can never have this again, so I need to eat all the French fries off my plate all at once. And so it kind of just, it becomes food is food, and it becomes, I'm going to have French fries again tonight or tomorrow or whenever I want them again. So I just get to listen to my body. And so, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. But I want to be mindful of time, and I could just talk to you forever about Diet Coke.
I know, we can keep going. But yeah, if anybody is talking with us and they're like, I want to learn more, or I need a resource, if they go to breakdietrules.com, they can fill out a short questionnaire and they can book a free 15-minute phone call with me. So I'd be more than happy to chat with anybody that's watching. And it's just breakdietrules.com.
Breakdietrules.com. And also, I just wanted to say, I saw somebody, should we unfollow fitness influencers? Yes. If they're all about changing your body, yes, because your body is amazing as it is. And please continue to follow Break Diet Rules, Alliance for Eating Disorder Awareness. Check out our check-ins, our virtual check-ins. And we're doing lots of Facebook Lives. And Sammy, we're going to do this again real soon.